How many of you grew up in public school? If you have, imagine the different directions your life would have taken you if you were educated differently. There are many different forms of private education. Today I'm going to discuss the Montessori philosophy and how it came to be. According to the American Montessori Society in the History of Montessori, in 1906, Dr. Maria Montessori opened the first children's house. With that, she developed the Montessori philosophy. It is still used today and is an interesting form of childhood education. I worked at the Pocatello Montessori for a short amount of time, but it was amazing to see how children reacted to this form of education. My mom is certified in Montessori, and it was fun to see her teach preschoolers and kindergartners differently than how I was taught in school. Being a nursing major, child development is a topic of study, and pediatrics is my preferred field of nursing. In the last few weeks, I've done extensive research on the history and significance of the American Montessori Society and Montessori method. With that being said, today I will talk about the three most important parts of the history. First, I'm going to discuss the founding years. Second, the materials and methods used. And lastly, Montessori today. The first important part of the history of Montessori is the founding of the philosophy and the beginning of an era. According to the American Montessori International, Maria Montessori was one of the first female doctors in Italy. This is her. In her early days, she worked in clinics with children with mental disabilities, and according to Rita Kramer in Maria Montessori, a biography, in one visit, a caretaker told Maria in disgust that children were grabbing crumbs off of the floor when they finished their meal. Maria observed this as the children weren't hungry, they were just bored, and they wanted something to do with their hands. After sparking a particular interest in childhood development, Maria opened the first children's house. She found that the children responded well to this method of education. They started showing interest in puzzles and hands-on learning activities. The system was trial and error throughout her lifetime, but she founded the American Montessori Society, and her ideas continued to spread even after her passing. Now that I've discussed the background of the Montessori method, I'm going to talk about the materials and methods used throughout time. The first children's house didn't have the resources necessary for the regular education, considering the area that they were in. According to Angelina Lillard, because of the classroom could not be called a school, she could not order typical furniture items. And that turned out in her favor, and she used small furniture items instead, such as tables and chairs, no desks, and rugs throughout. Maria Montessori was a strong advocate for child independence. The classrooms and materials and methods used were based on this idea. According to Maria Montessori's own handbook, the three methods she focused on were motor, sensory, and language. For sensory, she originally used sets of solids, rectangular tablets, collections of fabrics, and musical bells. For language, she focused on recognition and pronunciation exercises, such as this is big, this is small, give me big, give me small, and what is this? For motor, she used ideas such as puzzles, buttons, buttoning and unbuttoning, marching in a line, and incorporated music. These are some examples. Some puzzles and letter tablets, which when I worked at Montessori, they spelled out words all across the rugs and the carpets, and everything is done on the floor. Now that I've discussed materials and methods used, how is Montessori doing today? The last important part of the history is what it has progressed into. The Montessori school system has grown over time and is now a popular preschool option. According to the American Montessori Society, the U.S. alone has over 5,000 schools and serves over 2 million children. They have advanced in curriculum, but overall kept the same original ideas Maria Montessori had in 1907. An example of this in my mom's classroom is a radio setup with an audiobook where they used to just read out loud to the children. More advanced sensory bins, such as like a bucket of sand, and just wider curriculum. Well-known and respected people are Montessori alumni, such as Steph Curry, the creators of Google, and even Jeff Bezos. Education is ever-changing and children are learning differently. Today, I talked about the 3 most important parts of Montessori education. First, I talked about the founding of the philosophy. Second, the materials and methods used. And finally, I talked about Montessori today. The kids I taught in my short amount of time at Montessori carried themselves very well, and it was amazing to see them absorb information the way they did. It is an interesting and successful approach to childhood education. These are my notes.